Hello, everyone. We live in difficult times, don't we, you and I? Scary times, especially if we're too tuned into the news and the media. It's our job to bring things back to simplicity and to find some balance and some calmness in our life. There are ways to do that. When I studied with teachers from all over the world, they all had simple things in common. How can we be happier in our life? When things happen, when bad things come, and they will, and they do constantly, it's not that they're going to happen because they happen to me, they happen to you, they happen to us all the time. It's how we are going to deal with it. And many of the questions I get from people all over the world is they're sad, they don't feel like they have a sense of purpose, they're scared, they're lonely, and they're just looking for any advice, any direction. And I seek this out every single day. I fail at it. I ask questions. I look to my mentors, my heroes, my teachers. Sometimes I get an answer, sometimes I don't. Sometimes the teachers give me something I want to hear, and sometimes they disappoint me. And I realize that the older I get, the deeper the questions get, and the more simple I want life to be. Rather than bringing chaos into my life, I just want to let things go and make it more simple with less clutter and less things to worry about. One thing that I wrote down are some notes on how we can use an analogy to help us. It doesn't have to be what I'm using today, which in this case is a sword, but you can use anything, some trinket, some implement, some photo or something around your house. It doesn't have to be this. For me, because I train in the martial arts since I was a child, the sword to me has always represented how to stay happy in life. Well, you're thinking, how can a sword tell me how to be happy? It's in the practice, it's in the training, but also we can use an analogy with parts of the sword, and that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to go over a couple parts of the sword and how I think of them as a representation of being free from suffering. Because to me, happiness is not something that I run toward or seek out because I don't believe it can happen. I get glimpses of happiness, but to me, just to me, it's very subjective. To me, happiness is about being free of pain and suffering. I find that when I'm free of pain and suffering and I'm just being, I am just there, that is a state of happiness. It seems very natural, very soothing, very comfortable. When I'm in pain, which I'm in chronically because of my training, I'm not as happy as I could be. And then when I'm thinking about things, worrying about bills and the future and the past and looking at things and judging ourselves against other people's lives, what happens? We get stressed out, sad, unhappy. For me, parts of the sword help. Maybe they'll help you. Using this beautiful sword here. The guard. This is called a suba. Suba guard was to protect your hands from sliding up the blade. It was to draw the sword out easier, and it was to protect you from perhaps the weapons of the opponent, protect your fingers and things. Also, it looks really nice. I wrote down the suba. To me, the suba guard represents protecting myself and guarding my sanity. So the guard is seen as a mental guard that protects us from the negativity in life. For me, the guard represents me trying as best I can to stay off of social media, to turn off the news and unplug, and to do the more things in my life that represent protecting myself. Watching what I say, what I do, and what I think, because I realize that they have tremendous positive or negative consequences to those around me. I can say just a few words that ruin someone's day, or I can turn it around and be positive and make someone's day. And protecting myself comes from not just my martial art training, but my awareness about these things of the mind, what we call mind science. The suba guard doesn't just protect your hands. Mentally, it protects ourselves from the negative things in life. We look at the blade of the sword itself. It's a beautiful thing. It can take life, it can protect it, it can give it. So there are parts of the blade here. I have the kasaki. The kasaki is the tip of the blade, or what they call the tip of the spear. This, to me, the kasaki represents a point of intention. This is an intention of my life, our life, to go toward goals and dreams, to pierce through ignorance, and to go ever forward into the future. The sword tip represents the first thing that strikes and the last thing that pulls free. The sword tip to me represents my goals, my dreams, my desires. Everything in life that I want is the tip. And without that, I can't take the rest of the blade. What does the tip mean to you? What are your intentions? What are your goals? This is what the tip represents. You have the sharp part of the blade, the hard part of the metal. Often swords are differential tempered. You have a soft metal here and a harder steel here. This represents holding the edge. It's called the ha in Japanese. In order for it to hold an edge, it has to be strong and almost brittle. So the ha, the edge of the hardness, represents cutting through my ignorance, my sadness, and my hatred. When we hate things, what do? We obsess over them, and the people or the things that we don't like don't even know that we don't like them. It brings upon self-destructive thoughts. So the sword represents cutting through in a mindfulness and a meditation, ignorance, things that I'm not sure of, education, cutting through ignorance of things that I don't know. If I watch the news or I read the media, I have to be skeptical of what I'm seeing because people lie left and right. How do I use my thoughts and my wisdom, the little that I have, and the education to cut through all of that BS and get to the truth? I cut through sadness. And so can I use the sword to cut through that and to cut into the brightness of a brighter future and tomorrow? You have the back of the blade. The back is the soft part of the steel called the mune. The mune means spine. And the spine is where it's at. So the mune, which is the soft suppleness, which is what ju means in all of the jujitsu. Ju means supple. It means soft and flexible. It means that I need to have compassion. I can't always be bullheaded and strong. Sometimes you need to turn the other cheek and be compassionate. This is why the back end is soft, so that you can receive blows. You can become an uke. You can, when things go wrong, you can absorb things and have compassion. You can see both sides, the hard and the soft, of every situation. And that is about letting go. When I have hatred, when I have anger, frustration, sadness, how do we learn to let these things go? The sword tells the story. I have the habaki. The habaki is the collar here, as you can see. That's called the habaki. This holds everything together. This holds the sword together. It holds it in the scabbard so that it doesn't fall out. So when anger arises, I learn how to hold it together. Not let go, not lose sanity, but to hold together my convictions and my morals and ethics so that I don't lose my temper. I keep the habaki here. The habaki is what locks the sword into the saya. Without the habaki, you're restless, you are going to get into fights very easily. The habaki seals it all together. The ska is the handle here. And what is it all over it? This is called a skaito, the wrapping. Sometimes it's cotton, sometimes it's leather, and it's really beautifully designed. The skaito here represents heritage. This represents lineage to me. It represents keeping it together and being secure in the wrapping of my training. All of my years of training will see me through because I have put in the hours and the sweat and the time and the frustration and all the bad days at the dojo as well as the good. I keep it together. And this is the first thing that your hands hold. This is what holds you in battle, is the skaito. It is the wrapping that keeps everything together. Without that, the sword would fly out of our hand and we would have no grip on life. The kashira, which is the pommel of the sword, this part, this is often a decorative piece. It holds the wrapping onto the sword. But to me, I look at it as being prepared. Well, what does that teach us about being prepared? Because if this fails, I use the other side of the sword to get the job done, to win. So the pommel, the kashira, represents a backup plan. If and when my plans in life, your plans, our goals, our dreams fail, or we just don't feel like we're making momentum toward them, have a backup plan. Hit with that end. If you can't cut or this breaks, you still have parts of the sword left. And this represents being prepared in life, being ready for the future for when things go wrong. Am I prepared? Do I have the supplies that I need? Do I have the money saved up for a rainy day fund? That's what that represents to me, is when this part of the sword fails, it's not over, the game's not over, you're not out, hit with that side. So the kashira to me represents preparedness. You have this beautiful little menuki here. I don't know if you can see that. This is a little decorative piece that sits under the wrapping called the menuki. Some swords have two of them, some have one. This one has one on each side. This is a beautiful piece of decoration. Other than that, it really doesn't serve much of a purpose. But it's beautiful. And to me, the menuki represents decoration in life. Being pleasant and having fun. Not taking things so seriously all the time, as well as ourselves. So the menuki, to me, just represents keeping things light, being fun. It's okay to be decorative and kind of gaudy sometimes. It's okay to spend some money on ourselves sometimes. That's what the menuki represents. It's a little piece of decoration in the sword, where everything else is so serious and hard. The menuki kind of represents, hey, let's put a little pizzazz in our life. Let's make someone else's day. It's okay to splurge once in a while and have a you day where you don't take care of anybody. You just go to the salon or something. Do something nice for yourself. That's what the menuki represents. And it represents having fun in our training. Because without fun, what good is life? Life should be fun. If we have a sword which represents power, it represents life, it represents intention, it represents many things, history, we need to protect it. The saya is the scabbard. Every good sword has a scabbard. And what that does is it teaches us how to cover this up with responsibility. To me, the scabbard represents humility. If someone insults us, they send us a negative thing, they email us, they yell at us on the street over a parking space, well, you can pull your sword out and go crazy and end up in jail or dead, or you can cover it up with humbleness and look the other way and have compassion and understanding and see the future, see the consequences of our actions. If we do decide to punch that person in the nose, what will happen? Is it going to make things better or worse, or maybe neither? But to me, this represents protecting our knowledge and strength. The saya represents covering up the powers that our training gives us and not showing them off. Sometimes it's best just to walk away from danger and to avoid it altogether. That's the higher level of Budo that we all, you and I, strive for. The strength of this blade needs temperance. It doesn't need to be hot. It needs to be cool and tempered, and it needs to show compassion. So to me, the saya represents having patience. When I have goals and dreams in my life that I've written down and I've been working toward them for decades, I have to be patient. When things are going wrong and life seems to be attacking us at every angle, we need patience. What would our ancestors have done if they were in our situation? What would our mother, what would our father, what would our grandparents do? They would say, be patient. Many good things do come to those who are patient and wait for the right time. Or with the tip, this tells us not always to wait, but to grab that opportunity. When someone asks us to do something, yes, I will do it, rather than no, I cannot. Now, looking here, we write out the kanji for this representation of the sword. When things get hard and tough and rough for all of us, this kanji here, that is to. And to means knife or blade. To. And then the second half here, this is shin. Shin means heart or spirit. There are two ways to look at this. The enemy holds a blade over your heart and mine. Will we give up, or will we persevere, forbear, and endure and fight back, or in some cases remain quiet until the opportunity is right? Or the second part of this is, I will hold a blade over my heart to protect it. I have a heart of compassion, of love, and the willingness to make everyone's life better for my family, my friends, my community, our world, our friends, you and I both. We need a sword. We need a path. We need a discipline to follow in order to keep this solid. If these break apart, you become too soft, too much heart, too much mind. And then flipping this over, if we break this part off, we become too arrogant, too brittle, too strong, and we snap. You need both of these together, both sides of the wing, compassion and wisdom, what they call the middle path. These two kanji, sitting atop another beautifully like this, have represented my life for decades. What will they represent to you? The toe and the shin, sword over the heart, the ultimate symbol of patience and forbearance.